Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I actually tried to put this video on the end of another video, and then I realized that this video was not going to be able to fit on an end of anything. So now we're going to be talking about the Batman. Offer it, let me tell you, if you don't want to be spoiled on this movie, do not watch this video because I'm going to get into it. Do you hear me? I have so many things to say at once, and honestly, I don't even know where to start, but I have warned you, and that's all I'm going to say. So from here on out, I'm going to be spoiling the movie. The Batman was exactly what I said it was gonna be. I legit remember saying in the last video that this movie was going to exceed my expectations, and it did. And it's so crazy because even in the theaters, when I first started watching it, I didn't think it was. I started to lose a bit of my excitement because I think that after a while of watching it, I would say about 45 minutes into it, I started to recognize that it had been almost an hour and we didn't get a lot. I know that there's so many people that have been saying like this movie was too long, or the movie was great except there were some scenes that I just feel shouldn't have been in the movie. And I can see where you're coming from because like I said, the first hour of the movie I recognized, like, I'm not going to say that it felt slow. I just felt like with the expectations that I had of this film, what they were doing so far was not meeting those expectations. I didn't think that anything in the first hour was bad. I didn't think anything in the first hour was not worth me watching the movie. But like I said, I was expecting it to go off. And the first hour made me realize, like, we probably, because at that time I didn't realize it was going to be 3 hours long. At that time, I'm thinking to myself, we probably only have like an hour and a half left of this movie, and I don't know if they're going to be able to cram what I need from this movie in the next hour and a half. So I started to get a little anxiety of like, oh Lord, please don't tell me that they're gonna let me down because this movie, man, you know what I'm saying? First things first, I was rooting for Robert Pattinson the moment that I found out that he was gonna be Batman. I mean, I was rooting for him. And I'm not even going to bring up what people be saying about this man. But all I know is he deserves his props, and he been deserved his props. He has been a phenomenal actor for as long as I've known him. Despite any roles that he has played in the past, he has always been really, really good at playing each and every role that he has played. And that has never, ever, ever failed. I've always seen him in movies and was inspired by the way that he acted. He's very, very raw talented. He has such raw talent that it's like, man, you know what I'm saying? And so I knew that this was a great cast just based off of them choosing Robert Pattinson, despite what some people say about like I said, I'm probably not gonna speak on it. I'll probably just put it on a screen because I'm so done with people talking about his past roles as if it didn't propel his name. Like, people didn't speak about him before that role. And so it wasn't even a bad career choice. I just don't understand why people want to talk so negatively about him. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, I was standing for him. I was so rooting for him. And I was ecstatic because I knew what he could bring to this role. In almost any Robert Pattinson film, if you can't recall, like for example, Good Time or The Devil All the Time, I didn't even see that film, but I've only seen snippets of it, and I could already tell that it was, you know, something vicious. I honestly was just off put by the title, so I didn't watch it. But even in Tenet and things like that, I've seen him in roles where he was able to convey a lot of emotion with either his voice or his lack of words. He was able to do it with his body posture, with his face expression, and things like that. And so when we get him in this movie, when we finally get him portraying Bruce Wayne and Batman, off rip, I was super impressed. First things first, the cinematography. The Batman is the best Batman visually, in my opinion. I don't know I don't know what they did. But man, it's something about dark noir movies. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Noir, whatever. It's something about those movies where if it's too black and then it's also not balanced right, it just is hard to look at. It's hard to see. And I can't lie, some of the Christopher Nolan scenes, I honestly couldn't even keep up with what was going on because at some point it just got really, really, really dark. But this movie, it's still dark, right? But the way that the light reflects off his suit, I mean, his suit looks amazing. He looks good. The lighting is perfect because where they put the lights illuminates the right things at the right time. Like, for instance, in one of the first scenes with the Riddler hiding in that man's house, he was in a room watching the TV, and once he left from a certain portion of the room, you had the TV on and the TV flashed on the Riddler and you could see his eyes, and the way that the light shined on him in that moment was both terrifying and also the coolest thing ever because man, and not to mention the music that they used too. Oh my goodness, it was such a cinematic experience altogether. I was so fangirling in there. I was going completely nuts. So after the Riddler, one of my first favorite scenes, which I believe almost anybody who's watched this movie can agree to me, was when it was him narrating the first portion of the film. And that was such a weird take for me. You know what I'm saying? To me, narrating can easily make a movie seem a little cheap or a little rushed because I guess the rule is to show and not tell. And so when someone narrates, it can seem sometimes outdated or seem like they're just trying to rush a scene or trying to get a plot going, and so they have to give us like these monologues just so that we can understand what's going on, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But him narrating was y'all, no, his speech, the things that he was saying, him talking, man, it was giving me goosebumps. The I can't even speak. He was saying, I can't be everywhere at once, but they don't know where I am. I'm like, period. I'm like, you better put them in their place, Batman. And then when they showed that he had the sign, and the sign looked all rigid, the Batman sign where they put the bat symbol up, it looked all rigid and broken instead of like this prime pristine one. It still looked real rugged because it was like formulated real quick as a quick signal or whatever. Like they had just started using that as a tactic. And when he said, I think he said, the sign isn't a threat, it's a warning. I'm like, yo, go off then, Batman. Stop playing with these people, because he out here citing poetry, bro. Because the thing is, his speech was setting the tone for the entire movie, and I was living for it. And then when he says, they think I'm creeping in the shadows, but I am the shadows. I about almost had a heart attack. Boy, don't play with him. Don't play with him. He not for play. He is the shadow. Stop playing with him. I was going crazy. Oh my goodness. That set the tone for the entire movie. And just to see how fearful they were when they were looking in the shadows after they saw the bat symbol in the sky, it just showed how much fear he had put in these people's hearts, these criminals' hearts. And you could only imagine what he'd done so far to get them to that point. And man, and to see him before he was in his bat suit roaming through the crowds as like this anonymous person, he looks like literally a shadow even though he's not even in his bat suit. And I just loved seeing him, like, it's like he dehumanized himself for the purpose of his role of what he believed he was for Gotham. And just to see him roaming through these people as like a unlocked character was just so riveting to me. I was so in for this because I'm like, not often have we ever seen the Batman like in the middle, where he's not quite Bruce Wayne, nor is he the Batman, but he's like in the middle. First and foremost, we've never seen Batman really wear makeup, if I'm not mistaken. He's never worn makeup outside of his mask. We know that he's worn makeup in the masks because you can see it, but every time they take the mask off in previous films, they always showed him as if he never wore makeup. And so I just love that they've almost identified him as a third version of himself, as the in between, as the detective, as the silent stalker. Like, I love it. Yo, I love it. I love it so much, bro. I'm so hyped. I'm still super hyped. Oh my God. I'm just so hyped. I hate how hype I get about stuff like this, but I'm just so hype, bro. Okay, all right, let me continue. Like, immediately after that, we get the scene where there's a group of, I'm sorry, y'all, I love superheroes, but I don't know every character, and I'm never gonna act like I'm an expert in this. I just really love superhero stuff. So when I tell you, I know that these group of people are named something specific in comic books, but I just don't know what they are. Leave it down in the comments if you can inform me. But they had the face paint on. The criminals, whoever they were looking for trouble essentially, and they eventually found someone who was like put off by their buffoonery in the subway. They followed him to this dark alley and they started beating on him, and right before they could really get him, all you hear, bro, I'm sorry if I'm screaming in the microphone, but bro, I just get so excited. All you hear, bro, is footsteps. All you heard was footsteps. And oh my goodness, this is unlike any other Batman film I've ever seen. And I know I'm probably going to say that like 20 more times, but just think about it. In the Christopher Nolan films, which I don't say that these Batman films are bad, I actually really liked, especially the first and the second one. But whenever Batman would come into the scene, when there were villains going about whatever they were going about, Batman will always come in this like unhuman way, like almost as if he became a bat. You would hear like his cape flapping, but you would never see him, and all you would see is the villains looking around looking for him and shooting into midair and things like that, and you would never see him. And next thing you know, he'd be in the back behind them like, I'm right here, and it'd be like, how did you get there for real though? It never really took me away from the film, but it did make him feel like, to me, he wasn't human when he put on a suit. Like, he was, but he was just so talented, so skilled that he sort of was able to bypass some of the human difficulties of what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? And not to throw a whole bunch of other things into this review, but I love grit and I love down to earth superheroes more than I love the super fantastic superheroes, like for instance Superman. I really love down to earth superheroes. That's why I really like Daredevil, and I really like Iron Man, and I like, people who are actually human but they're doing super stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I love seeing them, most of all, navigate through their humanness in order to still be super. And one thing about Batman to me is, even though I knew he didn't have powers, I sort of needed to be reminded that. And it wasn't often that the movie would remind me. It would often be a person next to me telling me like, oh, he's human. And I'd be like, oh yeah, he is human, ain't he? What I love the most about this scene of him walking and all you hear is his footsteps is his attitude is different. You can see the human in him, but you can also get more of who he is personally by his simple choices. He decided to let you choose whether or not you were to continue on with your villainry, if that's even a word, by giving you the warning of his footsteps. Instead of the traditional, you hear my cape flapping because I'm actually coming to whoop that behind. He was actually giving them a chance to walk away. That's what I pictured him doing. Another portion is that he started off in the dark, but he came into the light. He was actually coming for them to see him. He wasn't hiding preparing to attack them from behind, but he was actually like, I'm not afraid of y'all. I am vengeance. Bro, that asserts so much more dominance. To me, it almost redefined Batman. Even though I know that this was set in a period where he's supposed to be his second year Batman, I would hate for them to then eventually divert him into what we know him to be now. I sort of want him to be his own Batman, but then, like, even more like bad. I've seen the trailer so many times, so I knew that he was gonna say I'm vengeance, but seeing it on a big screen in the theaters, just seeing him do that 12 punch, like, I don't even know how many punches he did on that dude, but he whopped him. He straight dug him into the ground. And one thing I really like about Robert Pattinson's portrayal of Batman is that he's not over accentuating his voice. You can tell that he's still comfortable with having his own voice peek through. And I actually appreciate that more because, like I said, it grounds his character. By the way, I don't have anything really written down. I'm speaking solely off of memory. And so I feel like I'm going to forget a couple things, but I'm literally going through this movie based off my memory. And one thing I love about Robert Pattinson in this movie is that he is so expressive with his eyes. And that says a lot considering he has both makeup and a mask on. I have never seen a Batman this expressive before, ever. And it says so much in these scenes where some people would say, oh, this scene was too long, or this scene was too that, or it just felt like a long time. But to me, it brought so much personality. It really fleshed out Batman in a way that we really needed, in my opinion. It just felt like we were able to understand him a lot more. For example, in a scene where he found out that the son of whoever that was, I ain't gonna lie to you, the person that Riddler ended up taping up in the first couple of scenes, his son found him dead. The look that Batman gave that boy, even after being told by Gordon, like, we gotta go, he is looking at him and you can see so many emotions, and that is a raw talent, by the way, to be able to convey multiple emotions, and you don't even have but your eyes and your mouth, and I'm able to read your face like a book. That is a doggone talent. Do you hear me? And I know he practiced that, and I want people to give him awards for that. Just looking at his face, he was looking disgusted and just tired and angry, and it made me want to come out and hug him. And there were so many moments where he gave face through that mask, and you were able to know exactly what he was thinking. He wasn't just interrogating people with his mask, he was living through this mask. I loved it. Like I said earlier in this review, after like an hour of the movie, I started to feel a little anxiety because I felt like though I was living, I still had high expectations for this movie. And up to that point, I hadn't necessarily got what I was looking for. Like, it wasn't a lot of action yet, besides, of course, the infamous I'm Vengeance scene that we'd already seen in trailers and things like that. So I was getting a little antsy because I'm like, okay, y'all only got like an hour left. Come on with it. Again, not knowing that it was 3 hours long. I ain't gonna lie to you. The first scene, and my favorite scene of the entire movie, that almost had me stand up because I was that doggone excited. I mean, goosebumps. Was the scene where Catwoman was taking Falcone's money out of that car, and then Penguin and his goons started shooting in that area. Batman he was on the ground for a second, which to me that was like a fake out, because I'm like, are you shot? Like, what's going on? Penguin comes closer to the car, and before Catwoman is revealed to him, bro, oh my gosh, I can't even say it. Before Catwoman is revealed to him, you hear the roar. First off, you see the lights, and then you hear the roar of the Batmobile. Oh, yo, I can't tell you how I felt when I saw this scene. First off, the sound of the engine squealing. Whew, y'all, I honestly don't even know the technical terms of what was going on with this car because I'm not a car person. I don't really know. But I just know that we saw the blue fire in the back and we heard the tires squealing and we heard him revving the engine and all you hear is the I don't even know how to make this sound. Yo, I was in here going crazy. I'm not even a car person, but that said so much more to me than a flex. It was just the best scene, and I really don't even know how to express to you that it was the best scene. I don't even know why it was the best scene, but it was the best scene in the movie for me. Just seeing that Batmobile come to life after that hour of me questioning if this movie would live up to my standards, that scene immediately changed my mind of like, this movie is top tier. Like, this movie ain't even nowhere near finished yet. Like, that scene was, yo. I don't even know how to express it to you. And then the chase between him and Penguin. Oh my goodness, bro. I love that he made mistakes. And what I love also about it is so many times in movies, we really only see the hero from one point of view. And whenever we see the hero from the villain's point of view, it's always like separated. I don't really know if this is making sense. But in this scene alone, what I love the most about it was that we were seeing his point of view and the villain's point of view simultaneously. And it read two different notes at the same time. In the moments where we were seeing what was going on through Batman's point of view, he was not doing everything perfect. He was crashing into water basins or whatever those big things are, those big orange things filled with water. He was crashing into those, and he was crashing into cars, and he was making swerves, and he was, getting, and you could see on his face that he was like okay with death. Like, you could tell on his face he was a little manic. Whenever you see Batman in previous movies in the Batmobile, he often looks very confident in what he's doing. He often looks like you don't have to question if he's gonna get done what he expects to get done. In this film, we don't necessarily see that face expression. We see the look of what we actually feel, of like, we have confidence, but he also has the potential to die too. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't really know how to explain it. On the one end, where we see him making clear mistakes and still getting through it anyway, and the ramp just so happens to appear and he's able to drive and ultimately propel himself on that ramp. It's not that he created the ramp himself, it's that he took the opportunity to use the ramp, which grounded him as a character. But the flip side is we can simultaneously see the villain's point of view, Penguin's point of view at the same time. And in his point of view, Batman looks like vengeance. Batman looks like he is making no mistakes. All the Penguin sees is him coming through the fire, something that should have been ultimately impossible for him to get through, which was the whole purpose of him celebrating this portion where he recognizes that he got Batman and Batman comes through the flames. It was such a message of like, I'm vengeance. I am the shadows, even though I can't be everywhere at once. And it almost brings you back to the narration. Like, I know I'm geeking out on this. I know I am. And I just hope that you hear me out when I say that it spoke way more to me than just the action scene. I was living. I love that you could see that from the villain's point of view, like I said, he is menacing and he's going to get you no matter what. But from his point of view, he is making flaws and he's still getting there because of his willpower, because of his resilience, because of his ultimate goal, and that he does not care about himself. Which brings me to another portion that I like about Bruce Wayne and Batman conglomerately, is that I love Bruce Wayne doesn't really have a lot in this movie going on. Like, that doesn't mean that they didn't flesh him out, but they're essentially saying that he is not a person yet. that Batman has to become Bruce Wayne, and he does it begrudgingly. Like, he's not Bruce Wayne to himself. You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like everybody knows that, right? But I love it the most because finally in a movie we actually get to see him prior to him totally utilizing his role as the billionaire playboy. He's still very solely comfortable in Batman, and when he's not Batman, he is this third sub character of this Night Stalker type dude. Oh, I just love it. So when we got to the scene where he went up to the guy who had that bomb on him, first of all, we heard the boots again. We heard him walking again. It's so funny to me that all the cops were outside and waiting on the bomb squad, and the phone was ringing, and Batman just comes walking. And it really sets the tone of, y'all don't like me, but I do the job that y'all don't. I do the job that y'all aren't willing to do. This is just my job, as what you're doing is your job. You get what I'm saying? It really sets the tone, and I think that this is obviously the foundation of what we see later, of him eventually gaining more and more respect from the cops. In my opinion, I don't really know if that's even how it goes in the comics, but I could assume, just based off the movies I've seen, that this is something that eventually comes to play. So whatever. But anyways, I love that when we get the scene where the bomb is about to go off and the Riddler is telling all these riddles, we saw that the time was going down, but it was such a message that he wasn't even trying to brace himself, that he was so concerned with the answer to the last question of, like, who is this rat that you're holding information about, because, you know, this could mean so much more. And obviously the guy was willing to die before giving this information out. But I just love that we didn't even see Batman really brace for this bomb, which obviously plays back to him saying that he doesn't care what happens to him. And I love that they're also showing that they're not just having him say that, but that it's true in his actions. And then we get the scene where he wakes up in that room full of all the cops, and they're preparing to take his mask off, and he's ready to buck. And then the scene where he ends up punching Gordon in the face. I'm telling you, that boy cocked back on Gordon. And when he comes outside later, he's like, you could have pulled your punch. And he's like, I did. Alright. I love the scene where he finally speaks to the Riddler face to face, or not even really face to face, but the Riddler's in this confined space and he's on the outside. And the Riddler's saying that he's been inspired by Batman this whole time, and that he's been helping the Riddler this whole time. And the Riddler's like, yeah, and I thought that we were gonna sit here and watch the chaos. And Batman's like, what chaos? And he's like, oh, you don't know? I overestimated you. I thought you were smarter than that. And to see the torment on Batman's face as he was revealing these things, and Batman is practically about to go crazy because he's like, what did you do? Ultimately, we get to the point where he finds what's going on underneath the carpet, and I love that it's too late. Obviously, because we get the finale, but also because we're seeing that Batman is becoming this great detective. He's not quite there yet. He's still missing some points. And what's funny to me is that the reason why he missed this specific point is because he was privileged. He doesn't necessarily know what a carpet thing is, and to be honest, I ain't know neither, and I ain't that privileged, you hear me? But anyways, so we get the finale scene where he's fighting all of these, I want to say they're like, what are they? I don't know what they're called. Den of whatever. I don't know. Den of Isles. I don't know. Maybe that was the first group of people. Who knows? But I love that he's fighting all these Riddler wannabes, and man, that scene was so doggone good. And we get the theme song in the background, and then, you know, he ends up, oh, you know what? Man, it's so many parts. I love the choreography. I love that his choreography isn't extravagant. He doesn't look like such an expert. I love that he's getting hit a few times. I love that he is only winning because of his drive and because he ultimately has a goal. And obviously he's skilled, but, you know, he's willing to die for what he wants. And that's what's getting him there. I love the part when he ultimately gets shot, and just a small little take. I love the little turn he does right before he gets shot, because it's just such a menacing turn. I don't know if you guys peep what I'm talking about, but it's like the iconic Batman turn, and I just love that. But then he gets shot, and so, like, you know, he's about to fall. My little critique is that then Catwoman comes and is like, oh, and she's like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You've done well. And it's like, girl, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to tell him that he's okay to die? Like, because I wasn't feeling that. But then she gets whopped a little bit, and one of them is about to kill her or whatever. And I love that he couldn't get up. But then this is where his intelligence came into play. He originally created this serum. I guess it's an adrenaline serum or something to stop or constrict his blood flow, or I don't know what it was. But he used that in order to give him the adrenaline, and I just love the editing of him like yelling, and I love the just the portrayal and the performance. And he got up and he started beating that man to a pulp. And the thing, I think one of the only critiques outside of what I just said is that it was PG-13, because I wanted to see some blood on that man's face. I wanted to see him almost dead, because that's what it looked like Batman had done. You know what I'm saying? Oh, goodness. The movie was doggone phenomenal. And in the end scene, because I'm trying to speed through it at this point if you can't tell. And in the end scene, the last scene that I really, really, really liked was in the end when him and Catwoman were riding off, and then they ended up taking two separate paths. And I love when he was looking at her, and this again plays to him saying, I don't care what happens to me, because if you think about it from the outside looking in, like we're supposed to be, I guess, he's still driving. He's not even looking in front of him. You can assume that nothing's in front of him, but it's still reckless. It's still reckless to look solely in your rear view mirror. And so just that little hint of him still making sure that she's safe and still putting others before himself, he didn't stop looking at his rearview mirror until she literally disappeared. And that's when he finally looked forward. That can mean a lot of messages, but what it ultimately meant to me was that he has this underlying oath of himself that he will always put others before him. And I didn't even take it as a romantic thing, because I feel like he would have done that for anybody. So I guess I can just get to the nitty gritty of what I want to say, or just the conclusions. Pretty much every performance was top tier for me. I loved Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He was freaking phenomenal. I loved that you couldn't even recognize him. And I loved his accent. Like, for example, after they caught him after the scene where he was getting chased, and Gordon and Batman was holding him against the wall, and they were accusing him of killing the girl, and he was like, what? I didn't kill no girl. I don't know how to do his accent, but his accent was so on point. So, Colin Farrell did amazing, and I loved, obviously, the makeup, just all of it. He was unrecognizable, and I tried looking for him in his face, and I just didn't see him. Perfect. Another person that I didn't even know before this movie was Paul Dano, aka the person who played the Riddler. I can't lie to you. He is so unbelievably talented that I feel like if I saw him on the street, I would actually be afraid of him. I think that is such a rare talent. There's only a few people that can be that menacing and also be that meek, all in the same breath. He was so freaking scary. Obviously, Robert Pattinson was top tier. I don't see anybody else playing Batman after him as far as I'm concerned. Yes, we'll still have a Ben Affleck version of Batman in another film, I believe, that's coming out soon. But as far as this trail, the Matt Reeves trail of Batman, the portrayal of him, I don't see another person playing Batman here on out. They need to let go of Batman in the traditional DC films and let Matt Reeves handle Batman here on out. I don't want to see nobody else playing Batman, period. It's Robert Pattinson's role, and I would love to see him in future Batman films. I hope that they keep this thing going. Give us a trilogy at least. So I know that, like I said, a lot of people have spoken about this movie being too long, and I can understand. I don't agree with, but I can understand what you mean. Yeah, this movie, especially in the beginning, it didn't drag, in my opinion, but it did, for the expectations that I had. Like I said, it did feel like I probably wasn't going to get what I was looking for. But then the rest of the movie really tied in the reason and the purpose of the scenes in the beginning that we were getting. And I don't see not one scene for real that I would take out of this movie. To be completely honest, I wouldn't change anything. But if I had to choose, and I feel like what I'm about to say is controversial because some people are going to disagree, a lot of people actually. But in my own opinion, I would honestly say that if I were to take out anything, I would actually take out Catwoman. And I know a lot of people absolutely loved her. I really like Zoe Kravitz. I love her parents. I love her. I haven't seen her in too many roles, but you know, she's beautiful. I think she's talented. And I love that she was able to play a character as monumental as Catwoman. I sort of grew up on her. I hate to say this, but I grew up on a 2004 Halle Berry Catwoman. Because everybody clowns the movie now, but whatever, we'll get to that at another time. I'll probably make a video on Catwoman. I like the character Catwoman, right? And I love Zoe Kravitz. But when it comes to this movie specifically, I would honestly say that as far as the plot goes, in my opinion, she doesn't do a lot for it. I'll be honest and say it from just personal feelings. Every time she was on the screen, I was either not as invested in the scene or I was sort of annoyed, to be honest. Like, for example, what I had just said about when she finally pulls Batman up from practically dangling and about to fall after being shot. She is like comforting him as if he's about to die. And there can be a lot of differing opinions on this, but in my point of view, I would have never suggested that he was going to die, and I don't know why they had her do it in this way. I don't know why they even had her suggest that he was gonna die. I don't know, that was a little finicky of a scene for me, but I just ended up being annoyed with her presence because it's like he is resilient and he is Batman, and we all know he's gonna live past this. And so for you to be acting like, you know what I'm saying, like, obviously he got shot, but he still had his armor on. He's probably just internally bleeding, which is a lot, but again, this is Batman. This is someone who gets beat up on the daily. Like, I never expected that. So for her to just insinuate that that was what was going on, I was annoyed with her character. And I was annoyed with her a few times. I didn't necessarily care for her choreography. I'm not digging on Zoe Kravitz. Zoe Kravitz was amazing. I'm not even mad at the character. I just don't care for her placement in this film. I would have loved to see her fleshed out a little bit more, in my opinion. The whole thing with Falcone being her father was a little, you know, like I wasn't like when they told me, it was just like, okay, and you know, I didn't necessarily even care about her friend dying and how she felt when her friend was dying, because half of me was sort of lost on the fact that she kept calling her baby. Like, I didn't know if what was, is she like more than a friend to you, or is she's just a friend? Like, I don't know, because I don't call my friends baby, so it was thrown off to me. It was weird. All of it. And, you know, like, I also didn't like how oblivious she was to Batman, because her trying to get him to ride off with her in the end was like, were you around for when he did all of this despite him being at risk? Were you around when he was risking his life back to back to back for the sake of Gotham? I mean, you literally just pulled him from practically dying because he was trying to save Gotham. He was out here jumping onto live wires and cutting them off and falling into water, and then going and saving people who were on the other side with one of these, whatever they're called. What are these things called when they have the fire coming out? I forgot. It's besides the point. This dude is constantly risking his life, not because anybody told him to, but because this is what he is, and you want him to go and ride off with you, like, I couldn't stand how, I'm not gonna say I couldn't stand, but it was annoying to me how oblivious she was to his character when it was so blatantly obvious. And every time you thought that she understood who he was, she would act sort of stupid again. I feel like I would think a little bit differently about this if the romance was heightened to a point. Did I want the romance to be heightened to a point? No. But if the romance was heightened to a point where we could understand that she would assume that he would still go right off with her, then it would make more sense to me. But they never really was a thing. They were really just passerbys and had chemistry. You get what I'm saying? Half the time they were in conflict. So it was just weird to me that she just assumed. And then she played it off on the whole thing of them being alike. You know, cat in the bag got a nice ring, whatever. But it's like, no, you guys are blatantly different. Like, obviously you guys are similar, but again, you're blatantly different, you know. I don't know. The only reason why I wouldn't say that she was completely useless, and I say that very loosely because I, again, like her. But the only real reason why I wouldn't say that she was useless is because despite her weird character in this film, she brought out more of Batman. I didn't care for what she brought to the table. I really like that she gave us a perspective of who Batman is before he decides to bring Bruce Wayne's character to the surface, because we'll eventually see him become this playboy type guy. And I just love to see him before that and see how not necessarily awkward he is when it comes to romance, but how he's willing to deny himself because he has a much bigger task at hand, and he is not necessarily concerned with himself enough to even allow himself to entertain her for real. And you can tell even in the end where he's like wanting to kiss her, but he is really like, there's one thing when you're wanting to kiss someone and you're like right here, but he's like right here and you can tell that he wants to, but he's that reserved because he's that like in his mind about it's not gonna work. You know, I just love that we see more of him because of her. But that's the only purpose I see that she's given in this film. That's, like I said, not a knock to Zoe, because to be honest, if we could see, I don't know if I necessarily want to see a solo film with Catwoman again, just because I don't feel like they're going to give her justice just yet. I feel like we need another 10 years. It's not like I never want to see her again. I think I would want to see her as her purely anti-hero self. Like right now, obviously, she's in her motorcycle suit. She's not quite in a cat suit. And you know what I'm saying? I would love to see her in her full self eventually. But in her current self, it's not really. In my own opinion, she's not really given. She was given the looks, though. She looked beautiful. But that's all that I really took from her character. So when it comes down to the slow pace, that's the only thing I would cut out of the film, potentially, but not even really. That's if I had to choose. But other than that, yeah, the movie was freaking amazing. I loved everything about it. There's not many things that I did not like. I'm even looking just to make sure I didn't forget anything. But yeah, like I said, I really love how gritty this film was. I love that it didn't feel PG-13. It's not like I wanted to see gore, but a lot of times when things are PG-13, it sort of loses the human touch, if that makes sense. Because sometimes gritty situations call for, you know, some unfortunate things that would not be considered PG-13. Like, for example, when that guy's finger was cut off. We know his finger was cut off, but for the sake of the rating, they didn't show it. I don't mind that, but I still know his finger was cut off. I appreciate that they were still allowing us to see the gritty effects of what Gotham is as a whole, how destructive and how doomed the Gotham City is, and I appreciate it. One thing that I feel actually, now that I've seen this film, is scared. I feel a little nervous because I love this film so much that I'm sort of clinging on to it because I feel like I don't know if they'll be able to top or keep the level that they're at right now. I'm not even really looking at this movie as a DC film. I know that it sort of is, but it's Matt Reeves has all the power with the Batman right now. You get what I'm saying? Like, this isn't necessarily in the lineup of DCEU of the series going on, like, for example, with the Justice League and all that crap. Whew, okay. I hope that they can keep Matt Reeves, which I'm sure he will, because Matt Reeves is doggone that dude. But I hope that we can get a trilogy out of this, and more than anything, I don't even know how you can top it, but I hope that they can top it. One other thing I will say is I didn't care for the Joker at the end. I'm tired of the Joker, to be honest. I want some other villains. I don't care for the Joker anymore. It's not to say that the Joker is not like the most iconic when it comes to villains in the DC area, especially with Batman, but honestly, um, y'all have been doing Joker like every 3 years. I'm done. I'm tired. If it's not the Suicide Squad with Jared Leto, then it's Joaquin Phoenix in The Joker. Then we had rest in peace Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and it's like we don't need anymore. I'm done with the Joker. I'm very done, actually. He is an overused villain. Now that we've gotten another version of Batman, let us get some new villains. Utilize the comics. Take out some villains that we've never seen before and bring them justice. Both Marvel and DC has done this in the past, but I'm so tired of certain villains and certain superhero characters getting put in a movie just for the sake of the movie, but not really being given justice. That's a whole nother conversation, but I feel like this video has gone on long enough and I'm not going to keep talking. If you have watched this entire video, I'm super surprised, but I'm also very happy because I know that the people who are normally watching my videos, I know that a lot of you are really here because of trucking, but this is my hobby. I always watch superhero films. They're my comfort films. They're my favorite films. One of my other hobbies is talking about them. I love both watching and talking about them. And so if you actually like watching me talk about superhero films, let me know in the comments. Who knows? Maybe I can start doing like I don't know, a segment where I do these midweek, because I have so many things to say about a lot of movies that have already come out. Like, we could do this, but let me know, because it is also time consuming. Like, it's currently like 11 p.m. and I'm going to work in the morning and I'm tired, but I enjoy this so much that I was able to stay up and do this whole video. But that being said, let me know in the comments if you like this movie, and also if you want to see future videos of me reviewing movies and things like that. And otherwise, I love you all so much, and I thank you all so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye.